Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, it's been kind of hit and miss lately with uploading some of these videos and doing some of the stuff that we wanted to do, but we're getting it done. It is -10 outside right now, and so it's really cold. So this is a good time to stay inside and paint. So the other day I ran into a good family friend, Neil, and he asked me if I could do a colorful bird for his mother-in-law Laura, who really likes the birds and flowers and stuff that we paint here on the channel. And I thought, yeah, this is a good time to do this. So we're going to do this. We're going to paint a colorful bird. And so I asked him, I said, send me a photo. And so he picked out a what's called a painted bunting, and it is a colorful bird here. This photo, he sent me a photo of it, and I went and found a really good one in a real kind of a portraiture stance on Adobe stock photo. And those of you on the membership and stuff, I'll load this photo up into you so you have it as a nice reference to paint. But it is a bird that goes from South America all the way up through South Central United States. Beautiful bird, and it was really funny. The female is almost like a light yellow green, and it was quite different. I've never seen one, but we're going to paint one, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on 11 by 14 board here. What I did for the board is I just made a light yellow kind of green color, which is white plus just a tiny touch of yellow oxide and a tiny touch of black. I added some of the canvas prep medium to it, which you've seen me do so many times. That's this particular medium right here. And it just makes a beautiful surface with a beautiful tooth. And if you haven't seen the tooth video that I did here just a couple days ago and loaded up on the channel, watch that, because it shows you why I like to have what I call a matte tooth to the paint, because it allows me to do so many different types of techniques, okay? So I gave that, sanded it lightly, and then sketched on the bird. You can also go back, if you like to do the birds, and if you've never done a lot of drawing and your drawing skills may be a little weak, go back through some of the videos. You'll see where I show you where you can take some Durafilm plastic, transfer that design. The good thing, the main important part about any kind of painting is getting an accurate drawing onto the painting. And so when you're starting out, I never recommend that you just start out drawing. I like to teach you techniques and color, and drawing are skills that we can work on, over the years. And so you can transfer on a real accurate if you if you go back and watch some of those videos. Okay, so I position this just a little bit up of center. I don't want it right in the center of the board, which is right here, a little bit up of center. I'm going to put some flowers right down through here. The bird is really colorful, so we have to think about that as we go ahead and plant some of our flowers. So I'll probably do neutral white blossoms, and one reason why is that's to calm the painting down, and then we'll use the colors of the bird as accents through those white, those blossoms and leaves and stuff like that, so we get a good harmony through the whole thing. That's the plan, okay? So well, hopefully it'll work. It's worked before, so it should work out here. My color palette that I have out here, these are the ones that my YouTube palette that I normally use. The listing of all of the colors are over in the video description down below. And as always, I use our colors. These are the colors I developed, years and years ago. And it is an artist quality, what do we call a multimedia acrylic that I can adjust the properties of it as I need. Okay, so we'll do that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a larger brush. This is our Fusion flat brush. I'm going to take a bit of white, and I'm going to push a soft, probably blue-violet. So the Phthalo Blue that I have here is a green, blue-green. So I want to push a blue-violet back behind the bird's head here. So I'll add just a touch of my Quinacridone Violet to it and make myself a blue-violet. Now I want it lighter, and I'm going to touch into some of this extender. This is the extender medium that we have, which will slow down the drying time of the paint. And sometimes I don't need this to stay wet as much as I love how it slides over the surface when I put it on, and that's what I'm looking for, a real slick to slide right over this area here. So I'm just going to pull this right down through here, and I'm not going to cover up all my other background. I love the casual nature of when I put a color on here and then it interplays with some of the other background that I've already decided to do on this one. So, but I do like to get a bit of a color back behind the bird there, the male. And then if you take out too much of your painting, you just tap through it with your paper towel there, and you can see your drawing back real easy. So this will push, we'll get a beautiful warm to slightly cool color moving through our background. We like that. I like that. So we like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take so I'll set this off to the side in case I need to soften anything. But when I look at any kind of object, and especially into the background, I start to decide, I go right immediately to complements, and one of the 8 rules of contrast, complements. And so the main part of the bird's head, which is really where I want everybody to come up and see, is a blue, okay? And so I'm going to really I love when it pays against these neutral tones. I'm going to want kind of a soft orange really to play down there against this, and that burnt sienna is just a perfect color. And I like burnt sienna and greens, especially into some of my backgrounds. You see me use this a lot. They're beautiful neutrals. And so right up in through here, I'm going to create some contrast that and I just push my line through here, and I know it looks, some of you are going, okay, and maybe Laura, maybe you're going, what did you just do? Now this is, almost all of this will paint out. This is just what we call contrast, and it is going to establish a ground really for the bird. And I'm going to pull through a little bit, soften some of this back here, and leaves a bit of the marks, a bit of the streaks. Where I really want it, and maybe a little heavier, is right up in here, right up in through this area, playing against the bird. And that's going to see how immediately when you put that in here, your eye starts going here. And then when we really put in heavy colors up onto the head of the bird, that's really where the viewer's eye is going to go. So I want to make some heavier marks right up through this area, right in there. And that's really where I want my flowers and everything to play against. Sometimes I even use a painting knife, and I'll push this around like this because I like the fracturing to the ground that it gets right up through here. This is going to be a bit too much, so I just wipe it down. I wipe out some of the stuff I don't need, but I like some of this natural movement that's going through here. And so a knife, using a painting knife. Painting knives have this little Z bend in them. Palette knives are flat all the way across, but having this little Z bend helps. And I'll push some of that around, and that'll be a good, and I'm leaving it here pulling down, mostly vertical here. I just want to soften that edge there, but pulling down mostly vertical here to give height to the bird. He sits at an angle this way, so we'll give some height to him right here. Okay, so then we'll back some of that out. Sometimes, especially onto the bird here, sometimes I'll look to the bird and we'll see it right back through here. I'll look and see some of those tones, and so I'll add those tones and see that immediately. If I add a bit of that tone right in there, that's going to make the bird part of the painting. The two are going to be related in there, right? Okay, so that's what I always do. I always look to relate those two, your subject matter to your background, and that brings them in line with each other. All right, let's go in and let's do some blocking in. Let's just take a smaller brush here, maybe something like a 4 or a 6. Here I have a 4. This will probably be good. A 4 or a 6. This is a Fusion Flat 4, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to block in some of the color. So I'll look. Let's first go up here to our blue. Up into his head is a leaning blue violet. So we'll take Phthalo Blue and some of our quinacridone and a little bit of white. We'll lighten it up. We'll go, I don't want to go too dark. Sometimes in alla prima, this is what we're painting here. This technique is alla prima. And sometimes in alla prima, I work my darks right up to my lights, and I do what's called half-toning techniques. In this one, we're going to start out with just a medium undertone of the bird, and then we'll paint darks and lights on top of that, okay? So I'm going to come right in here, and I just want to identify his blue areas here. And when you're putting this in, even though it's all the same color, you still use what we call good contour following strokes. So, you know, here is his head. That's going to be right in here. And so I read his feathers. At what direction do I see his feathers being stroked? And that's how I move my brush, because any kind of little movement in there is going to give the feeling to the contour or the shape or so of his head. So right down here is going to be very important. I'm going to take this little bit of blue off of that right there. And so right down in here, we want to a gentle little curve down. Now, what is the most important is his face is foreshortened, what we call foreshortened. And so it's turned slightly this way. And a thing that most beginner painters do is that we would take the head right to the point of the beak, and we don't want to do that. To help his head turn properly, we want just a little bit of that blue showing up on this side of his beak. You need that there, and that helps turn his head. So don't stop the head right here at the point of the beak. Let it come down a little bit more, and let's just push in a little bit that there. Now, where do you see some of the other blue? The other blue is going to come down here this is what's called his mantle. These are his coverts, so that we can put a little bit of blue down in here into those coverts down there, okay? We have really a dark, we might put some of that tone in there, a darker burnt sienna and blue. So let's just grab a little burnt sienna and blue, nice dark little tone over there. Sometimes if I have the color in my brush, I'll go ahead and move into the next tone just to do it, so I don't have to, depends on how fast I'm trying to paint something. So I don't have to, do so much changing of the colors on my brush, and I can paint faster. You know, that's one of the things I pride myself on, and is the speed at which you paint, because that's what keeps the casual nature to a lot of what I paint, is the speed. I don't play around with it. I just make a powerful mark, and then I get out of there. And that speed is very, very important to the casual. A lot of people ask me, matter of fact, I answered a question on the channel. They said, well, how do I make my paintings more casual? What I did is follow the technique that teachers have been doing for centuries, and that's time the paintings. I gave myself a limited amount of time to paint a painting. Then you don't have much time to play, and you go and go and go and go and go, and you learn that with this mark that you put on here right now is going to get mostly covered up. So why am I worried about it? Just keep going. Keep your movements going. So we'll push a little bit of that, maybe a bit of that sienna in that. This right here, this medium that I have here, which you'll see me dip into every once in a while. This is the open medium. This is the Derivan open medium. It's our Australian company we do a lot of stuff with. We work in conjunction with them. All of their stuff works with our stuff. As a matter of fact, they do the main manufacturing of our paints. We have all of our paints made down in Australia, and some of it made here, but down in Australia. And they're a wonderful company that we've been working with for decades. So they're wonderful to work with. Okay, so let's push in a little bit of that. I look for other little things, other little tones, and there might be a bit of that little tone sitting up there. Some of that'll cover up, and that's okay. Push into little areas that I'll just, where you might see some of that tone showing up here and there. And we won't take too much of this tone color in there, because Laura wants a bright bird, so we'll do that, okay? All right, so that's that particular thing. And I know some of you are probably bothered by this, but I'm going to leave this up here so I can really get that bird going. And then you're going to be surprised at how much that softens out here in just a bit, okay? All right, so I haven't lost my mind. So now we're going to go into let's go into some of the greener tones that you see in through here. It's a nice yellow green. Pine green is a nice yellow green, but it's a little bit more green than what we need. So we can add a brighter, which is Hansa, and this will make you a real bright one. We could take this green, we can come over here and we can add a little yellow oxide, which will make it more toned, okay? And which is right about the color that we're going to use right in that area. And this will get, as we get up towards his mantle, right back up here, we'll maybe go to that one. But you could also, a good part of harmony is to also add some of your main colors of your background. So it is okay to add just a little bit of this. So we might add some yellow and then a little bit of our burnt sienna in here. This is what we call harmony, because the whole painting is going to key off of burnt sienna that I have in here. And so this will give you just real good harmony. And it's a medium tone, so let's just start out with that. And somewhere in here is my original sketch, so I'm going to be sketching it again. But I'm going to add these right here. This section of the wing is called his covert. And so we'll just put in a little bit of green in there right now. So what I'm looking at is that right there. Let's go up a little bit more yellow green into that, brighten that up. You can add white, but white will take away its intensity. And so, because white is a toner, and so white will take away its intensity. So I'm going to avoid that for right now. And I'll come in here with this other little green, just pulling down. And you see I move my brush in the direction that I see. So his little coverts here are pulling down this way. And then as we get up here to the mantle, you can see the direction. So I step off to the side. I'm going to add a little more yellow, maybe a tiny bit of white, so I can lighten it without making it two-toned. And let's come right back up here. We're going to pull down, maybe right up towards a point there. Okay, and you can see where it slides in through some of that other color that's still very wet here, but it slides into some of that other color. And so you get this nice, kind of modeling that you're looking at right in there, okay? But I want to be careful because when I pick that up, now see, you can see on my brush, I've picked that up. So I want to come back and pick up a little bit more color, redress it, and this time pull down this way. That'll give it a little power. And wipe my brush a bit, pick up some more, because see, you can see the burnt sienna that comes off because I hit that part of the wing. And I really don't want to have that in there right there at this point. So now I got that part of him in there. Now, let's just go ahead while that's wet and work that up. We'll pick up a little more white, a little more yellow. Let's just take another little lighter stroke right down there. Add just a touch more light, just a bit more. Right up in here, right up in this area that you see on him. And that's the whole point is, what do you see, and then how are you going to go about emulating that? What techniques are you going to use to emulate that? And that's what I love to teach. I love to teach techniques. Here I'm going to just pull down and add some little lights right to the end of the feathers here on the bird. And sometimes I'll switch. Now you see me holding my brush like this. This allows me to get a lot of detail because I work up on the tip. If I want to switch over and do more of a different type of thing, I'd lay the brush down this way and use the hairs of the brush to create a little different movement to and that's what I want to suggest right in there, a little different movement. And then I can go back to the tip of the brush here, and I can push them back up this way, just touch and lift off to do more of a defined edge. Like you see right there, maybe a little bit more, or work back and forth, down, back and forth. Here I'm using the chisel of the brush, giving me a little different look to that front edge of that wing there. And I can see that some of this is pulling down, and mine's going this way, so I'll just add a few streaks pulling down to get some of that movement pulling down on the wing that way. So I can start setting up some of that look of that wing. And I can come back here, if I wanted to, go back and revisit some of that burnt sienna and stuff like that right up here. I can revisit that, pulling up here like that, sharpen up an area or crisp it up or something. You can do that. Okay, and you can see it's already dry right here. Let me show you one thing that's really neat about the Heritage is you can just take water for a few hours, and I could just add a little water to it right here and reconstitute that paint. This is one reason why we call it a multimedia. I can reconstitute that and use that paint. Now after a few hours you can't do that anymore, but for a few hours you can do that. So let's just take some of this mottled color right in here, and let's just push that right up in here that we see, right up just through some of that. I love the coloring on this bird up in that area, so we'll make sure that we get these beautiful colors and marks coming down there. I want that a little bit more yellow-green here, brighter yellow-green, pulling down at this angle just a bit here, just down just a bit here. And then I'm going to take a little burnt sienna, blue, some of these tones right here, and kind of tap this right in here and clean up that edge right there just a bit. Here we go. I like some of that. I don't try to, I mean, you could sit here and play with this until you get exactly that mark. Did not come out very well. I wanted to show you what not to do. Sometimes you hit that mark and you just got to redress your brush and go back and do it right, Dave. Okay, so, but I don't try to copy absolutely everything perfectly, because then you've ruined the, I'm going to rinse that out of my brush for a minute. Then you've ruined the spontaneity of the painting. So, you know, just have some fun painting with it. Use your photo and stuff for reference, but it does not have to be exact. I'm going to slide this a little bit more violet, just a touch more than what the actual bird is showing, just because I like that color variation right in there. Let's push that in. Let's go a little bit darker of a violet, so no white this time. Okay, we'll use this, a little blue, a little violet. We'll use this to tap in some of the dark colors. Just a corner of my little flat is what I use here. And I'll use some of this I'll read some of the movement of those feathers and see, where do I see shadow coming up here around his eye. There's always on a bird like this, on the buntings, this is the bunting, and they always have a little bit pulling back behind the eye there. We'll just blur this just a bit here. As a matter of fact, you could blur off this back edge like I have here, or you can clean it off, you know, pretty well. I'm going to leave it a little bit blurry, because that'll cause his back edge to recede just a bit there, okay? So this is going to give me a nice, let's come back in here, maybe just a little lighter blue. So you can see I constantly change my tone just a bit as I'm painting around the bird, so that, because the easiest way to destroy the interest in a bird is to paint him all the same color. So we want to kind of avoid that. Let's take some white here over to the side, a little bit of that violet in here, and let's just add a light little touch. That's going to be a little bit too light. You can see that compared to it's a little bit too light. I don't worry about it. I just come back in with a little bit of dark, and I just pull through it a bit, and that just gives you some of the interest that we're looking for here. Let's take a bit of the slightly darker and pull down at that angle to match that going into that edge of the mantle there. And I'll push this back up to the roundness of his head here. But I wanna leave, and I'm gonna do it not quite so light, so maybe a little bit of yellow and yellow oxide in with that. And it's to get that green in there, and then we'll go back and lighten that up. In other words, I stroke it with a couple of tones. So and what that does is it constantly keeps me, and that's getting closer. But what it does is I use my finger here to push it in and out. There we go. Now you see all of those other little tones going on there, and I like that. And I might push some of that right down in here. Tones. It's just to get these tones moving. Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but get those tones moving. I like that. And, you know, one thing when you put a color on, and I always tell my students this, when you put a color on, you may put it on and you may push it and you may go, oh, I just made a mistake. No, it's all paint. You just put on more paint and go back and fix it. I mean, I don't ever get frustrated with it. I know what I need to do to fix it. There, that's better. That gives a better look to that. And see, and with anything, with like these birds, the more that you work them like this, the better they're going to look. Let's put in some of the burnt sienna blue. I'm going to add just a bit of extender over here and some white, just a dirty kind of gray. And if you look with this color here, yeah, that's a good color. Add just a bit of extender so it stays wet for a second. But this is a good color to work some of the neutrals here on his wings. So we'll just, and I'm going to give impressions of these secondaries. These are his primaries. These are his secondaries. I'm going to give the impression there of those because I don't want to add too much detail. I want the viewer's eye to come right up in here. And so we got that pretty close. I'm going to take some of this color and I'm going to pull it right up in through here because it's a good neutralized tone. Not so you don't see that greenish color anymore, but you see a little bit of it. And we need to lighten up that greenish color a bit. So, and sometimes if I want to leave the color thick, that's when I touch into here. So usually when I'm drawing a feather is when I want that color a little bit thicker. And that's where open medium really comes in. And so I'm going to pull these coverts down. And you can see my color is a little bit thicker here. And then I can push that in. I'm going to pull those coverts down like that. They could have a little bit more refinement. Maybe I do it, maybe I don't. It all depends on how much of the painting, how much time I'm putting into the painting. Here we'll do this. And maybe we'll take and draw some lighter, little bit of green right out here. Get some of these other colors into here. Out onto these, down into the primaries. It's just the movement. I'm more interested in the movement more than anything else here. And let's take I look across my painting here. I'm going to take a little blue and a little bit of this burnt sienna, this nice neutral. And I always look across my painting, maybe a bit of extender and open medium, thin this out. I look across my painting to see where I can use some other tones to adjust, and that's going to be right up in here to adjust those shapes just a bit here. Boom, right in there. And there we go. That's just a little bit better. And we have to go back and put these other yellow green. So all of that we've lost. And see, that's the thing. We're going to go back and forth a few times, but I'm not going to worry about it. We lost a little bit of our other ones right here, these guys. So I'll just go back and pull up and put that row of feathers in right there. Maybe a bit more yellow into it, don't you think? It's nice to do it once, maybe a touch of white into that. Do it once, and you can come back and do it again here. And each time, get it a little bit more refined, heading a little bit closer to the bird here. And let's just neutralize some of this and pull this down. A little bit of red needs to go in that, I think. There we go. That gets that. Clean up. As I start to get some of this on here, I will start to look for some details. Like this curves in a little bit too much and it needs to point in just a bit. And I want to keep that because that's a good area of interest on him. There, I just took that out. So we get the opportunity to put it back in again. That little bit of point. And that's a good light tone. I can push just a touch of it more right down in there. A little bit right up in here. There we go. Just good light tones in there. Okay. Whew. Yeah, now we haven't, I kind of violated one of the rules I do all the time is going through and putting in the middle tone, and because we didn't add any of our reds, but we can go back and do it now. Red, orange is what he is. Let's start out slightly toned. So burnt sienna, And I'll add a little extender, keep this wet. Burnt sienna and some of our reds here first, right down in here into the lower part of him, right in here. And we'll add some of that reddish. This is a little deeper and a little more red than what I see in him, so we'll push that in right now, though. It's just for right now. Let's go more Naphthol Red Light with that, and let's come right up here up onto his throat, and let's drop that in right in there, and we'll come down. It's got to go more orange as we come down, so we'll shift that here in just a minute. So we'll grab some more orange. Now, see, this is the way a lot of you say, you know, can you go paint a parrot or, you know, some of the big, bright tropical birds? This is how I would approach them as well, just like this. So now I just drop down, making more of an orange, looking at the bird here, and I'll start stroking some of this in, following the contours again, letting the colors kind of run together there. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull this right over some of this red, and see, it's going to streak it up and make it look like you know what you're doing, because that's really wet right in there. So, but just like I did before, see what's on my brush now? See that? Do you see that on the tip right there? Okay, that's the darker color. So if I go back up towards the breast area here, I want to wipe off my brush and go back and redress that color with the one in that area that I need. If I don't, I drag that toned color, I push right up there, right back there, right into my bird, and I don't want that. So there we go. So we'll push that in there. We have to get that nice lighter blue violet shoulder here, blue violet here. And I'm going to rinse my brush out, because see how grayed that went? That's because I had so much of that. And what are those two colors? Complements. So I didn't have you know, enough clean area there on my brush that I could do that without cleaning it. So we'll go back into this, and then we'll go back into our white, and you'll see my blue comes up much better now, not as grayed. That's because that orange is a complement in this. Just the tiniest little bit of orange in there will gray that color. So you do have to be always thoughtful with your colors here. There we go. And we're going to bring this, I'm just going to softly whisper that down into that that area there, that orange. I'm going to rinse my brush out, because I'm going to go back over here to my orange, and I'm going to lift my orange now right back up into it, and see if I can get that crossing of those colors there. There we go. Those colors to cross there. Okay, and maybe and then I always evaluate it now. What does it need? Probably a little more orange coming down in here. Okay. Oh, look, yeah, that brighter orange looks pretty good right in there. I'll just tap into these edges here. I want to get a touch more brighter red orange, more Naphthol Red Light, right down that edge, and boom, down his breast area there like that. That's a little better, so closer to him. Now, you know, one of the things I do, you know, sometimes you see me right away go into paint the eye. I didn't do it here, but I usually, you know, do go in and do that, and but we're going to go do that right now. So I'm going to start out, one of the favorite things I like to do is I like to push in some burnt sienna in the back side of the eye. Even though his eye is very dark, the burnt sienna puts in just a little touch of a warmth to the eye that I really like to have inside my birds. I really like that. Now I'm going to go to a real dark color, my blue and my violet, and I like to neutralize it with green. This makes really, really dark colors here. And we'll use this as we tap in the other part of the eye. And I'll paint out just a little bit of that burnt sienna here, getting the round part of his eye there. Okay. Now what makes his eye really stand out in all of that is going to be the little red eye ring down below, red or orange eye ring. So we'll take a little bit of orange here, And we'll come up, and I don't have, there it is. Let me reach over here and grab that. My rest, the rest of my hand on. And I'll use just the point. This is a little number 4 round, and I like it. And I'll use just the point there to push in a bit of the orange right around. And usually what I do is I put on too much and then I paint it back down into position. Now, I'm going to lighten that up a bit because it's not showing up quite as much as I want this. I usually do the eye rings of birds quite a bit lighter because I like that little spark that the eye ring gives it. And it helps lift off the eye. So you can see it's a little lighter than the other one, than the sample. But I really like how it lifts the eye. I'm going to take just a touch of a lighter blue right up on the top side of his eye ring here. Just touch it, lightly touch it around a little bit here. And I hit his eye, so I get to correct that here. And back in and tap in a little more dark right in there. There we go. A little more dark. There, and I'll go back and forth just a bit here to fix up what's, so I'll slow way down, don't speak, and push in a really nice, pretty little eye ring there. That is going to give him lots of nice interest. And he gets a catch light, what's called a catch light in portrait painting. It's not quite white. I'm going to take it off with a little bit of orange, right? Just a small one right up to the top. Usually, I put it in too big there, and then I'll paint it back with some of the dark. So that's just a touch big, and then I put a bit of the dark in my brush, and I tap into it until I get it to the size and stuff that I want to have. So that gets his eye in there, see? And he's standing out a little bit more than the other one. If you don't like that much, maybe take too much water right there. Let's just take a toned little color here. Any kind of sienna, blue, colors that you're working around his beak and stuff with. And you can just tap right up to the edge of that eye ring and take some of the size of it down. I'm going to use some of that burnt sienna blue right down into his beak there. Okay. And then we'll go to a gray. We'll just lighten that up. Add some white to that. And burnt sienna and blue make beautiful grays. And we'll just pull that in. Make sure you go into his face just a touch. He's got to go into his face. Let's reset that dark. A little more burnt sienna and blue. Reset that dark right in there. Okay. Boom, right in there. There we go. And then we'll come back and lighten that up. Burnt sienna, blue, white. This nice gray color. That burnt sienna. And you need quite a bit of that burnt sienna because phthalo blue is a real powerful color. So let's get that in there. And on him, on this little bunting, he's got a lot of pretty little colors in his beak. And so this is where I would paint it back and forth several times to get all of those colors in there. And so I'll touch into a little more burnt sienna and blue here. And I'll pull that right through into his beak here. And then I'll touch back into my light colors. Get some of those nice lights and shines. Maybe a little bit more of a lighter gray right up here onto the top here. That will leave right there. A little bit here onto the bottom. Here, tapping some of that around. Here. Here we go. Just work. And so, you know, with some of the birds, I'll work the beaks quite a few times. This one needs to be cleaned up a bit. In other words, it's a bit fuzzy. Now, when I go to clean up, you know, sometimes you'll see me, you know, I always say to clean up. I not only clean up with the beak color itself, but I'll use, especially if I've got something off a little wonky, and that's just a little bit wonky, I'll use the original. See how it stayed wet here? It's been, what, I did that over 30 minutes ago. Still wet because I put that extender in it. And I'll use this to clean up the other side of the beak here. And, you know, I can use this up and around and clean up and blur off anything if I want to blur some of these back edges so he gets a receding part of his face there. I can do that and clean up, you know, some of the lower part of the beak here. And I'll go back and forth several times cleaning some of this up, you know. And I like to do that. That's how I fix that up. And sometimes you might have to wait. That's really, really wet there, so I might have to wait for it to dry up a bit. And sometimes I'll use a different brush. So here I'm just going to go hit this right now with this small flat this way. And I'll use the flat of the brush here to help me with some of the shape of the beak here as well. So I'll do that here. But I'll work back and forth. See, that's a lot better. That cleans up his beak a bit more. Could use a small touch of light here. Let's go back to my smaller brush here for a second. A small touch of lighter color. And it's a little bit more blue here. All kinds of, this is where I really like to have the fun of, as I get most of it blocked in, most of the tones, I like to slow down and start finding what color that is right in there, because that just takes your painting a little bit closer to what the bird is in actuality there. So, you know, and I'll find that stuff. That's a pretty little tone, almost perfect. And we can just add a little whisper of that. But this is where I will work. And I really like to work the eye and the beak area until I get them a little closer to what I want. Now, up and then I'm going to put that brush away for a minute. And I want to add just a touch more. I have his throat off just a touch, okay, which is right in here. It's not off, it's there. It's just not way I want to have it. And we'll push that down there. And there's a real light kind of blue coming down underneath the beak on that side, kind of running together a bit here. And so these are one of the things, you know, if you want to take your birds, your paintings and stuff to the next level, you go back and forth with some of these colors. So here's a little dark coming in through there. And I'll go back and forth in the tapping of some of those colors as I start to work this little guy here. And, you know, shape him up and look for little areas that he might be off, like right up in here. I mean, the beak comes too high into his face, so we'll fix that. We'll pull this down this side just a bit. That'll set the beak a little further back into his face. He has some deeper shadow, a little bit of violet here. A little bit of violet right back here, which is very important. It's that shadow from the eye socket area of his head. So we'll push that in, right in there. That shadow comes front here as well. Front, right down there in front of the eye, down here towards the beak. So I'll push that in, and you can see that starts to shape up his face a little bit more. Let's lighten that up and maybe reset this, because that blurring that I did there distorted him just a bit too much. So we'll pull that down here. There we go. That makes him a little better. But that's what it is. It's a process, guys. And then, you know, how much time are you going to take during this process to capture him the way that you want to do? And here, so he's getting pretty good here. A little bit of that lighter blue coming back. I like that a little bit. Let's just add a little moisture. Could be water or extender. Just a few little hits of some of that blue and some of your other tones there. That looks pretty good. How much more, you know, brighter orange and stuff do you want to have here? Your brightest orange is yellow, is really a lot of your Hansa Yellow and a little bit of your Naphthol Red Light. Now they're slightly different color. Pull that down. Set in some of his other colors there. There's just a whisper of kind of the bluish kind of color coming right down through there as well. So you want some of that tone showing up. You can see it there. It's a little more purple than what I have here, so a little bit more violet. So let's just add that in, just a little bit more violet here. Why not make him more colorful than he is? This is a very colorful bird here, okay? So, but, and if Laura, if you don't like him this colorful, blame Neil, okay? Because he told me to paint this one. So, anyway, we'll put in a bit more of the, let's just put in a bit more of the darker tone right up underneath here. And that'll push a bit more of a shadow. There's a bit of a darker, so you start analyzing your tones. And how much time you're going to spend on this is all up to you. But, you know, right in here where it separates out the coverts and stuff, there's a darker mark that comes right in here. And it goes up underneath that. That helps set where those coverts and stuff are. Could have a little more burnt sienna in it, so it's not quite as much. We could even pull some of that right down in here. This is just good contrast on the bird, and it's just looking for little bits of details and stuff on him that you might want to have there. Now, how much you want to do? How much do you want to do back down in here? Let me just take a bit of the orange stuff that we have here. I am going to let this all be fading away here. So I'm just going to basically blur his tail out here and let some of it just fade away. There is that touch lighter orange, maybe a bit of white into that, just touch lighter right in here. That's going to pull down. That is kind of his, these would be, I guess this would be his tail coverts, they call it. And just push that right down there. You can see that it's a little lighter on the reference photo and stuff, but you know, I'm away from my center of interest, so I don't want to do too much right in there. Maybe a little bit of this light can be used right in here to give the impression of some of his breast feathers and stuff. And some of that can come up, pulling right up in through here, right up on the other darker tone, just a softer little bit to bring that closer to his look right in there. So I'm a little darker right in there, up and around his eye, but I like how it's pulling him forward. So I don't think I'm gonna change that. I like that forward look onto him. So let's continue on before we turn this into a long video. We'll put on just an impression of his feet. You know, it's just, and I'm going to cover it all up here by blossoms and everything. So we'll give just the impression of where his feet and stuff are. We don't need that much. And then we'll go in and have some fun painting the blossoms. I'm going to keep the blossoms softer and just more of a wispy, but they're going to carry some of these colors and stuff that we have here. You know, I really should do maybe a bit brighter in the texture. Let me do that real quick. A brighter in a texture stroke right on his chest. So Hansa Yellow and a little bit of the Naphthol Red Light. Bright, bright, bright. Let's add just a touch of white, and we're going to keep this kind of thick. This will advance his breast area right in here. You can see that, And that's just because I'm doing it there with a textured stroke here. You can see how that builds that up just a touch more. And so sometimes if I lay down a lot of heavy color, I'll lay the brush down like I showed you earlier and push that movement in like that. And see, that gives that breast area a little bit more punch, even than what the original has. And you know, that's up to you to decide if you like it or not. But I think I'm gonna leave that up in there because I love that punch that gives it right there. And I might just give a little bit right in here. Boom. Just a bit here. There. We'll see. We'll see how that softens out, darkens out, and maybe a little bit of red with that, and just pull into this area a bit. Let these overlap. These are where his feathers, different colors, are overlapping. So we'll just leave that right in there. That gets him pretty close. Pretty close. I got his head is. I just see that, and that's the thing. You know, I'll put this. I'll work on this today. I got a frame over there already for it to go. And when I drop it into the frame, that's when I might see something a little bit different that I have to do. And I'm just going to widen this out just a touch. Widen out the width of his head. Maybe pull that down a bit more than what you see. And that gives more power to his head there. So, and yeah, so these are some of the things that I look at, you know, in the structure to make sure I get the structure of the bird correct. And I need to widen his throat just a bit. Then we'll go paint those blossoms, I promise. Yeah. I just, you know, structure of it, I really like to get it correct. And this is one reason why, even though you start out by transferring your painting, you know, some of you beginners, I always have you transfer with plastic so you don't draw. But at some point, drawing has to become part of your painting because it's important to see where you might be off somewhere, okay? So it's not something that I say you don't ever have to do. No, you have to learn how to draw. You know, but that doesn't have to be done right away. Darn, I keep missing that mark. It's just like a little flat mark here. Let me just coming down, and I just can't quite capture that today. There we go. That's better. Then I'll rinse that orange out so I can go just to that little blue. Then we'll fix that up and go paint these blossoms. There. That's good, just like that. That's good. That's a good look to them. It's a little different. Could have a little more purple right in there. And I could pick this apart forever and ever, but I'll just put a bit of that and then we'll get out of here. There we go. That's good. Now, let's go back into these blossoms. So I'm going to do a larger brush. This is one of my favorite ones. This is an 8 or a 10 flat. And I'm going to just work all these neutrals right up in here. I'm going to add open medium to it because I want this to stay wet a bit and I want thicker paint. And I want these kind of grayed blossoms. Beautiful grays are going to come from your burnt sienna and your blue. Those are the main colors of the painting. Okay, so we want to get some beautiful grays here, but yet we can slide it a little bit violet or slide it a little bit yellow and stuff, and get all these variations to these blossoms. All these will work. Okay, all these colors and stuff here will work. And so what we're going to do is just, 5 or 6 petal blossoms here. And I only usually paint a couple of the petals, and then I let the rest just kind of fade away. So, and we want to preserve that center. So I'll lift off, pulling from the center out into those petals, a little bit of that light color. Let's come back up over here. Maybe paint one that is turning this way a bit. So it's a blossom that's turning. So we'll see the calyx on it. Okay. And I do, what I do when I paint these guys is I'll push heavy and pull in. Sometimes I'll turn the brush onto the chisel. Sometimes I don't push hardly any at all. And this gives me a nice variation to the petals. And here I'm going to pick up some more white, maybe a touch of yellow into this. But basically, I want to get rid of some of that extra. Let's get a fresh paper towel. I want to get some white here, some heavy white and lay on just light pressure of the brush so the texture lays off. There we go. And I want that heavy light right there to compete against the lightness of the bird there. Now, I'll sometimes just pull out and give a softer look to the petal, a more fractured look to the edge. And right here I'll pull in so I get a little different edge, a little different look. But out here I'll just let these fade away. I don't need very much out here to say petal, because you're already seeing that as a little flower. And so if you put on perfect light white petals, then your flower loses interest. So you only want to really hit a few petals. Hit a few petals and then get out of town. Don't do too much to it. So let's gray this down a little bit more now. And we'll come out here and we'll just whisper on some other ideas of little petals here. Okay, maybe right down here we'll touch in and give the idea. I like to just play thinking of petals turning. I call them rocking and rolling here as they're going down different directions and stuff. Let's take some of the light yellow green here and let's just whisper a bit of that into a few of the petals here. See what that does? Is that's harmonizing the colors coming down from the bird. So we just hit it in there just lightly. So what it does is it's bringing the petals, the flower petals here right into the birds and bringing them in together. Let's take a little burnt sienna and blue, which is some of the dark colors that are used in the bird here. Let's touch that into some of the center of the blossoms. Don't mix it up real well. Just tap it on your palette. Don't mix it up real well. Okay? And we'll just touch some of that in. That'll give us a real nice, the dark from the bird here. Casual nature of it. Okay? And yeah, now I'm going to take some of that. Oh, I hit that white. Let's get rid of that. And we'll go even into some of this green, burnt sienna, and blue here. Let's use this as an idea. Yeah, maybe a little more burnt sienna in it. Use this as an idea for some of the stems and stuff that we have down here. And remember, you have to make a kind of a sturdy little stem here for him to stand on, right? So you do have to make it look like maybe these are, apple blossoms or cherry blossoms or something, that he has something to stand on here. And we'll maybe continue this on and up this way. Just the idea here. And sometimes I will flip over and push. Just, I'll add some extender here so this is really transparent and give some of the idea of maybe some other blossoms or something sitting back here, just lightly into the background. And that could actually, because it sits back there quite a ways, we could push a bit more light in there. But this is the modeling of it that I like to do here. And we want to make sure we keep that tail. See how I just push the color. All this is still wet. Remember that blue we put on? Because I put it on with that extender. It's still wet right there really well. So, it's really nice, that extender. And today, that extender is just sticking around forever. So there's a good forward blossom there. Let's add maybe a smaller little idea of one coming right out there. Fill it up a bit. Nice green and burnt sienna. You can make a idea of a calyx here. Just push it up into the petals a bit and you'll get the idea here of a calyx. The calyx, the stem end of the flower there. Okay. And we're going to fill up some leaves as well, because that's going to give us a wonderful opportunity to work some of those yellow greens here. There we go. Just a few little ideas there. And, you know, when I first started painting, it was so hard for me to paint casual little petals like this. But I've done a lot of paintings of it now, and I realize the casual petals, the ones that you don't worry about making them perfect, those are the prettiest of them all, you know. But I used to try to always just make them perfect, and no, that didn't work. Let's tap in some yellow and maybe a little yellow oxide. Don't mix them up real well. Hansa Yellow and yellow oxide. I haven't used that Diarylide at all. And we'll tap a little light color around the center of these. And see, that's just a good color that will pull some of the bird down into our painting here. You know, maybe a touch of it right there. Maybe a bit here. And yeah, simple. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Let's soften some of this right here. See, it just, and if yours is dry, your acrylics that you use dried there, then just take a little, you should be able to still take a little water, and if not, you'll have to take some of your background color and come back up through it and stuff, but I kind of like that. Let's just smear this out a bit. See, I put that light, that background on there, see, and it's just still wet, so I can smear it still. That's kind of pretty there. And let's go here, some burnt sienna, some green, some extender, little yellow, nice yellow greens here. The bird colors, but I want them a little tone, so a little burnt sienna in it. And so it's kind of some of the tone that you pick up in there. And we'll do some light color, some colors here of the of leaves, and that will bring the bird together here, where we just push and lift the brush, and maybe a little darker right around that center area of the bird right in here. That gives us that nice contrast. I'll re-stroke that one blossom there. Here. And then I got that, it shows up as kind of like a little dip in his beak there. I'm going to have to correct that. And I can do it. Sometimes you can just use the water on the edge of your brush here and collect that up. Yeah, that's better. A little bit more of a sharper point to his beak. And I'll have to, that's really, really wet there. A lot wetter than I really like to paint. So I might have to let that dry just to do the final little cleanup right down in there on that. But you can, you know, just slowly work it. And here I'll push. I don't like to stop right here like this, so I'm going to push some green right here back behind him like that's a leaf back there. And so he looks like he's setting into it. You don't want to avoid your little bird with leaves and stuff. You want to set them all around here so that, you know, they are part of the painting here. So grab some of those here. Let's just grab some marks here. There we go. There we go. And I think I want to fix up some of those blossoms and stuff there, but I want to carry some of the bird colors, some of the yellows back in there again. So before I go do that, I'm just going to hit some of the colors. Because if I stroke too long, too much white, let's put a little green in that. If I stroke too long, too much white, I'll just make them all white blobs, and I don't want to do that. So I restate some of the colors, and then we'll come back and hit some of those lights one more time. There. Sometimes I paint blossoms like this if they're center of interest blossoms 4 or 5 times till I get the actual look to the blossom that I want to have. And But don't just keep laying on white, because you'll make them too white, and they'll overtake the whole painting here. So I could make a little bit more white on that right there. There we go. Ooh, that's kind of a pretty little dark right in there. And we'll pull this up, pull that one up there. Just marks. Some of this, as you get further back here, it just needs to be marks. It doesn't need to be perfect little flowers. You can paint some blossoms and stuff back there, but that doesn't it's not necessary. Let's give the idea of a little calyx maybe, but it's not necessary. Let them be blurry back through here. Let it all be blurry and stuff. Yeah. Maybe some little buds or something like that further up here. They're not opened up yet or something, you know. This is a quick little kind of two stiffs. I'll round it up just a bit. There, that looks a little bit better. And it's kind of a pretty little bird. Now there's, you know, and I look at him and stuff, and I like that. I would probably, so you look at all of this, and then I start to relate it all, and your hand should look like this. You should have half of your bird on your hand. And but I don't have enough blue. Do you see that? The blue is isolated right there. It's a little bit through the painting. So let's take our lighter blue, and we added a little bit of violet to that. And let's just take a lighter blue here, okay? And I'll wipe that off, just a little bit of it here. And let's start touching some of that through little areas. See how you pick up that blue? We want to pick up that blue. It could be just a touch lighter here. And let's just add some of that blue right into our blossoms and extra little marks of our painting here, so that we're carrying that color. Maybe some of these petals here, more bluish side to those particular petals right in there. And see, so it's carrying the color. So that's always what I do, is I always, towards the end of the painting, start looking at, am I carrying some of these colors? Now, one of the things that you might want to do is take it off of him just a bit and maybe add a bit of that light blue up there. Let's go in real careful here and set that little light blue right in there. That's on his beak here. There we go. And we could, I kind of destroyed that dark on the dark side there, so I'll be putting that in. Let's just take a little bit here. Kind of hard to do this with a big brush, but we'll do it. And soften that out. And again, take some of your lighter blue, any of these lighter blues here, you know, that sky blue color that we had. And those of you that painted the bird series, now I did it entire, if you enjoy painting the birds like I did an entire series of birds on the channel, and you can go back and look on the channel and see. I mean, I painted all kinds of birds here. You can see this is all real still wet here, and but I painted just all kinds of different birds and stuff, and really fun to do. There we go. We'll push this. Let's put a little lighter blue right in there. See, it just carries that right on down through. And you can even take that blue into some of your real darks, and you know, if I wanted to pop like this blossom out a little bit more, I can increase some contrast down below that. That would do that. And I am going to now, and I have this big brush in my hand here too. One last thing I'm going to do is I want to advance this part of his breast right here a little bit more. It feels like it's sinking in just a touch, and I want to bring it out. And I think that would do him a lot. First, I'm going to clean up this contour right up here just a bit more. It's a little bit too rough and lost. That brings his head forward. And then I want to take, we'll rinse that brush out. Let's take some, let's come down here to kind of a clean area. Some red and some Hansa, and quite a bit of Hansa here. I want to really put a stroke, a heavier stroke of some of that color right in here to really advance up his breast a bit more, right down in here. Let's do this. Right in there. There, Laura, that's really bright for you. There we go. Right down in there. And see, it just advances his breast just a bit more. And we'll pull a touch of red down through that just a bit. Here. There we go. And, you know, do you do that or not? That's your choice, but I wanted to advance this look, just to advance that area of the breast just a bit more. So why not make him more bright? Yeah, you know. I'll have you know, this is a hard one for me because I'm not that bright of a painter. I don't like painting real bright colors, but they make fun birds. They make fun birds. So now you can come back. I mean, if you want to add, you start looking for details. If you want to add some of the definition between the primary flight feathers, you know, I sometimes will do it with a liner brush, but a lot of times I use just the chisel edge of a large brush, and I might just add a couple of them here. There we go. Just a couple of them so that you see some of the definition of the flight feathers, but I don't want to give it too much. You could have a touch more of that dark if you want to increase that kind of V look there into his back. Look through your bird, look through some of the darks and start bringing some of that back out. You know, I might bring this dark line back in here just a bit more, right in there. And it's a little too dark, but that's all right. That's all right. And final little stuff, you know, just go around. And I really like to use my small round and stuff to, you know, for you'll see in other birds that I paint. Let me put it this way. On the channel and some of the other birds I paint, you'll see me use this small round like this and do feathering, what I call feathering strokes. So those of you who like to paint those birds, make sure you go over and look at those types of feathering strokes and stuff, because they really make a difference. But there's a brighter, there's a bright bird for you guys. That's a good idea for, you know, for that. I probably will add just I took out maybe a little too much shadow in the center of the, you know, around these blossoms. I do like to have some of that burnt sienna around there. See, that little bit of shadow just kind of kicks that contrast right up in that area. So this one could use a little bit of it. Watch how much you're adding. See, that's the contrast. Watch how much you're adding in there, and it starts adding more contrast. How much do you want to have into your, you know, into your painting? That's yours. So I'm going to tap in just a bit more bright yellow here, a little bit of bright yellow here, right in there and right in there. And that's up to you, you know, how much you want to do. But finish it all off. So now, yeah, that blue carries a little softer down there. You could, you know, a good alla prima artist, sometimes, you know, if you don't have an object that's going to carry that color, you just take that color and you make a mark of that color right down into there. And so, you know, that color appears back down in there, see? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just carrying that color down and through and seeing that color. So, you know, an alla prima artist will do that. Do you do it or not? That's up to you. What do you like to do? Okay? And hopefully Laura will like this one. Okay, so anyway, there you go. There's a brighter little bird. I could come in. I'll probably let this dry, and I'll come in and do a few more little tiny feathering strokes right up in here. I got to let that dry to do that. You can see me do that on some of the other bird videos that are through the channel, and I'll probably do it on that one, okay? Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to a landscape next, so, you know, stay tuned to the channel. That'll probably be up in the next day or two, okay? And as always, if you have something you want me to see, I have a whole list stuff I got to paint. But just make a comment down there. Appreciate the comments. We appreciate it when you like our videos here. Share them, help spread the word of the channel and stuff. And because we got a lot of stuff we're going to paint together. And I got Dashing Through the Snow over there that I want to paint. The antelope running through the snow for those sort of my wildlife painters and stuff like that. Westerns and wildlife. Okay? All right. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks very much.